All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me. Had a little technical difficulty at the beginning of the last class, but I think we sorted it out. Let's see here. All right, thank you, Carrie. So yeah, we're here to practice some yin together this evening. And this evening I have a sequence that I created called the pendulum. And the pendulum articulates the hips. Okay, so it's going to move the hips forward and backward and to the side. It's going to move it around. And our hips have a lot of different ways that they can move. So that means more postures, which means we have to cut the time down a bit. So today we'll be doing 3 minutes per hold instead of 5. I call 5 the gold standard in yin, so it's great when we can do 5 minutes. But it can also be nice to do a more active yin practice where we're holding 2 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes even just a minute. So anyway, we don't want to get too attached to anything. That's an important thing I want to really emphasize. Sometimes I meet people in yoga and like if they don't get their spot in the room, in their, the yoga room, their night is ruined. If the temperature isn't exactly how they want it, their night is ruined. If their teacher isn't there, their night is ruined. If the sequence is a little different than what they expect, again, so we really don't want to be that way when it comes to our yoga practice. We want to be flexible, not just in body, but also up here and in here. Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I do different sequences that have different, approaches, because I want you to stay flexible. I don't want it to always be, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to get when I go to Doug's class. So in some ways, we live in a consumer culture, and consumerism tries to turn everything into a product. And the products are all the same. They're homogenous, right? You go and buy, one Kellogg's cornflakes and it's the same as the next Kellogg's cornflakes. Well, spirituality should not be like that, flat out. Okay. So if I am not consistent, that is a good thing. All right. I'm not saying inconsistent like I don't know what I'm doing. I just mean that I'm going to try and challenge you. I'm going to have different things for you to do, and that's intentional. Okay. All right. So let's begin our practice. We'll come into a tabletop. Let's do a little bit of the bear pose. Bear is a rather yang posture, so we're beginning in a rather active way. So again, if people come thinking, oh, I'm going to just lay around in Doug's class for an hour, well, might be resistant to doing the bear pose, as you have to move and engage. But it should feel good. We're moving in any way that helps our body feel a sense of release and relaxation and activation. Okay. And then we can do some down dog. Same idea. Moving and stretching and rolling over those toes and circling those ankles, bending those knees. Good. So we're going to start with a dragon, which is one of the most yang yin postures. Bring the left foot forward. Bring our right knee down. Okay, now if that knee needs some padding, put a blanket underneath it. Okay. And then what we like to do is raise our torso up and back. Hips are forward and down. Should feel a stretch right here, the front of the right hip. Okay. So I'm bringing my hip into what's called hyperextension. The knee is coming back behind me. I'm trying to keep my pelvis basically upright. That's why we don't want to do this. Okay, you might want to do that, but we're not doing that. We're coming up and back. because we're trying to keep the stretch right here. Okay, and if I bring my torso forward and down, my pelvis tilts forward, and then I'm no longer getting hyperextension in the hip joint. Now, if you want, you can bring the back foot in, but you want to be careful about this. Sometimes when people do this, they also do this. Okay, what's the problem with that? Well, I might be stretching the front of my thigh, but now I'm no longer stretching here. So again, this action of hips forward, shoulders back, very, very important when doing this posture. So whatever else I add to this, I need to keep that going. Okay? All right, so you stay there. I'm going to grab my props. Forgot to bring them out. Now, as usual for the class today, you might want a bolster, a blanket, a couple of blocks, and a strap. Those are pretty standard. Some of the studios I work at are beginning to open again, and almost, well, none of the ones that are open or planning to open are going to let you use their props anymore. It's too high risk. So what does that mean? If you like doing yoga, you like practicing yoga, whether it's at home or in the studio, and if you like props, well, you're going to have to buy your own. This is the new reality in which we live. So I've been mentioning for weeks now, if you don't have props, you might want to invest in some. Well, that's an even better reason now, because even when you go back to the studios, they're not going to have props for you, not for the foreseeable future. So you're going to have to bring your own props. Okay, so of course this could be a towel, that could be a couch pillow. The blocks are really the thing that's the hardest to replicate at home. So I would start with a pair of blocks if you're, gun shy, but I would just get all of those if you can afford it. Just invest; they'll last you a lifetime, and you can do some restorative yoga at home. Okay, let's go ahead and switch sides. All right. So we're going to come back to the other side. So again, this is dragon. This is called dragon flying high. And again, the two main actions are hips forward and down, and then shoulders up and back. Now you notice I'm sort of resting my elbow on my knee, but here's another way to push your torso back. Look like that. Okay. And it's a matter of personal preference. Many things in yoga are, and then some things are not. And it's important to know which is which. And when I say personal preference, often what I actually mean is it's going to depend on your body. Our bodies are shaped differently, and that is not just superficial, meaning it's not just on the surface. Our bodies are shaped differently inside too. And what that means is how the postures affect us and how they feel is going to be different from one person to the next. And this is what one of my teachers called the biggest blind spot in yoga, because oftentimes teachers think that what they're experiencing on their mat and in their body is what the students are experiencing. And it's not always true, especially if you have a unusual physique or an unusual body. And then even if you have an average body, one of your students might have an unusual body. So either way, making that assumption is a mistake. So that's why you need to make sure that you feel the stretch at the front of your left hip and that you feel safe. And if those two qualities are not being met in your posture, then I need to hear from you. So you can just leave me a message in the chat. You can unmute yourself and just let me know you're having a hard time. Less than a minute here. I forgot to mention at the beginning, feel free to play any kind of music you like as long as you can hear my instructions. And as long as your microphone is muted, it's fine. Don't play any music because I've heard that it just doesn't really work um, over the streaming platforms. It doesn't really sound very good. All right, less than 30 seconds here. Hopefully you're feeling that stretch. It's kind of intense, right? It is for me. And intense is not a bad thing. In fact, very often intensity can be good. Just a few more seconds here, and then we will relax on our back. Okay, so take your time, gradually unwinding, and we'll come back onto our back and rebound. Okay, which means we're just going to relax in stillness for a few moments and feel into our body. Okay. All right, beautiful. Let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze, doing the leg cradle. And using intuition and experimentation, trying different things out, different ways of moving the body, engaging different muscles, stretching different muscles. All right, beautiful. And then from there, let's go ahead and hinge up. So hands under the hips, we extend the legs, lifting the head and neck, take a deep breath. And as we exhale, we lower the legs toward the ground. Hover for a moment, inhale, pop the legs up. And we exhale all the way up to seated. Okay, beautiful. So let's go ahead and do the opposite. So a pendulum is something that swings, right? One way and then the other. So that's what we're doing with our thigh bone. So right leg is straight, left foot to the inside of the thigh. We're going to come forward and down, nice and relaxed. Okay, props. You could have a block under your forehead for a little extra support. Under the forearms. Okay, only if necessary, right? If you feel vulnerable, if you feel like this is dangerous for you, right? You could put a block under this knee, the left knee, support it. You could also sit on a block, which will push you forward a little more aggressively. You could sit on a folded blanket. And you could rest your torso on the bolster. There's several different ways that you can do that. Now, I do want to mention that, and I always mention this whenever I'm talking about props. Yin and restorative yoga are different. They are not to be confused. So if you're doing restorative, you want to prop yourself up, make yourself super comfortable. That's probably the most important thing, that you are comfortable and that you're relaxed. In yin, that's not the most important thing. In yin, the two important things are you feel safe and you feel the stretch in the right place. Where should you be feeling it right now? Right here, the back of your right thigh. Okay, so whether you're comfortable or not that important. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, or I'm not saying you should be uncomfortable, but if you're uncomfortable, that's okay. And again, this is an important point to recognize when working, doing anything where you're trying to improve yourself. So, if you're entertaining yourself, then don't be uncomfortable, right? You're trying to have a good time, trying to have fun. Make yourself comfortable. Enjoy. Right? If you're at the movies, there's no point in sitting on a nail or something and making yourself uncomfortable. It's not going to do you any good. But when it comes to healing, when it comes to health, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to education, when it comes to training, very often the things that make us the most uncomfortable are the very things that allow us to grow the most, or to heal the most, or to learn the most. Okay? So, very, very important point, because I run into students all the time. In our culture, we're sort of encouraged to always be comfortable, to make ourselves comfortable. And we think if we're uncomfortable, something is wrong. Well, this is a problem from a yogic perspective. If we're really going to practice yoga, we're going to get the most out of it. We have to be uncomfortable sometimes. All right, let's switch sides. Half butterfly. Again, let me know if any questions come up for you. Otherwise, we're going to be here 3 minutes. Same thing on the other side. About halfway there. All right. So just gradually making your way back onto your back. We'll relax. And again, just feel the rebound for a few moments. right, let's pull our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze. Move around a little bit. Shake it out a bit. Good, and then let's hinge up again. Okay, now let's do a half frog. So you might want to sit on something for this. I like to, but it is optional. You may also want to turn to face the side of your mat, like I'm doing. But again, that too is ultimately optional. All right, half frog. We'll do is take our right leg out straight. We're going to bend the left knee like so. Okay. So legs are wide, but one knee is bent and the foot is folded back alongside the buttocks. Now, what everyone tends to want to do is fold over this leg, but we're not going to do that. We're going to come straight forward and down. And what we're looking for is a stretch right here. Okay, so if you don't feel that, again, I want to hear from you. And again, you can use props here. So the head is heavy. So supporting the head can be a good idea. You could lay your torso on a bolster as well. Okay. And again, 3 minutes here today. Okay, about halfway. All right, so let's switch sides. Okay, same idea here. Take this right leg, bend it, bring that foot alongside the hip. Take the left leg, straighten it out. And again, the really important action is the legs are pretty much as wide as they will go. So my legs pretty much can't go any further, any wider. And then just come right down the middle and not over the straight leg. It's not that kind of a stretch. Feel free to experiment with flexing or pointing your left foot and toes. Okay, you can just let them relax, but sometimes activating those muscles can also create an effective stretch, a different stretch, right? All right, so please take your time, and we will again rest before we continue. So just gradually making your way back. Now, when you rest, ideally you really let your body become still for a few moments. So you can just imagine that you aren't doing yoga class. There's nothing for you to do. There's no future for you to look forward to. There's no anticipation, no past that you need to worry about. You're just here, feeling what's arising in this moment. So, really de emphasizing anything that is not occurring as part of your present moment experience. Okay, let's bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze. Again, feel free to be creative here to find what works. And then we will hinge up again. Okay. Remember that the hinge not only brings us upright, but it also stabilizes the hips and spine, and it also helps to strengthen the core, which is very important for our health. Okay, so we brought the legs out. That's called abduction. Now we're going to swing the leg to the other side. That looks like this. It's called adduction. And this is the posture we'll use to adduct. This is called shoelace. It's a yin variant of Gomukhasana. Okay, so the right leg is coming over to the left. The left knee is pointing to the right. And then we come forward and down, and we're looking for a stretch out here. Maybe just in the right side, but maybe both. Okay, and sometimes it's helpful to sit on something when doing this pose. Again, you could use props in front of you for support if you need it. If you need it. If you don't need it, my recommendation is go without. Again, not worrying too much about being super comfy here. All right, so again, use a prop here like that. And again, if you're having a difficulty with this pose, just speak up, let me know. Pretty straightforward for most people anyway. Now, the reason we're doing this today is that by articulating our hip joint like we're doing on a regular basis, it helps to keep the hip joint supple, to keep it strong, to keep it resilient to injury, and help it recover if we do injure it more quickly, or maybe to help it recover, period. Sometimes we get injuries and the body does not heal itself completely. This is quite common. And we end up with chronic injuries. And what most people don't realize is very often to heal a chronic injury usually requires us to work the injured area, to stress the injured area. So avoiding it because it's painful is very often the worst way to completely recover from an injury, meaning you won't recover from it. You'll just always have a pain there. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving you medical advice. So, don't go do something painful and say, Doug told me to do it. But this is what I've learned through my training. And if you talk with a physical therapist, they will probably likely tell you the same thing, that very often therapy is painful. It's difficult. It's not easy. But that's what we need to do if we're going to make a full recovery. Now, what's interesting is this applies beyond just physical recovery. It applies in our life pretty much across the board, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. When we try and avoid that which is difficult, that which is painful, we often stunt our growth and we stunt our healing. We stunt our recovery. We stunt ourselves from being whole as human beings. Let's switch sides. Okay, so this is called a shoelace. Your legs are like the laces on a shoe. You sort of bring one over the other, right? And then we come forward and down. And again, we want to feel this on the outside of that hip, left hip primarily. So if I were to sum up what I was just talking about, would probably be something like this. Physical life generally benefits from a healthy amount of stress. What is a healthy amount? That's an excellent question. Because if we have too much stress, then we can either create new injuries, worsen old injuries, and we might even die or create a trauma or kill ourselves in some way. So, too much stress is also not good. But where modern human beings are right now is we're generally, in this country, there are other parts of the world that it's a different story, but we're not in another part of the world, are we? We're here. So we're going to focus on our condition. For most of us, our lives are too easy, physically speaking. And then you could say mentally, we have too much stress. We have every problem from around the world piped into our television every night. And we have hundreds of channels that will tell us all the things that are wrong, going wrong. And it's overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming. And most of us feel powerless to do anything about it. So we have this immense mental stress. And then physically, we're not getting enough stress. So it's a real imbalance that most modern people live with. Thankfully for us, we're very lucky. Yoga can help us deal with both. It can give us the physical stress that we need to stay healthy. It's exactly what we're doing right now. And then practices like meditation, yoga nidra, can help us deal with the mental and emotional stress of modern life. Okay, let's go ahead and unwind. We'll come back on our back, relax for a few moments. So it really is no wonder that yoga is becoming more and more popular in modern culture because it really does have the perfect balance of mind and body. Our bodies need more stress, and yoga can do that for us, bring us physical stress, and our minds need less. And again, yogic techniques like meditation, yoga nidra can help us deal with that stress. All right, let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze and shake it off. And then let's hinge up. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into a tabletop. So we started here. We're a little more than halfway. So it's not a bad time to check back in with our bear pose. See if anything's changed. See what we can get with it. I'm being way more aggressive this go round in my bear. So I feel a little more warmed up, stretched out at this point. And then again, a down dog is a good time to do another down dog. All right, now we're going to look at the last two articulations for our hips, which is rotation. So let's bring our right knee forward. The right foot goes to the left side of the mat, and this is called sleeping swan. It's the yin pigeon pose, if you will. Now you have a lot of options here. I'm going to go over them briefly. The front knee can point straight ahead or out to the right. The right foot can be towards the left hip, or you can pull it closer to the front edge of your mat so that your shin is parallel with the front edge of the mat. Your hips could roll over to the right side or to the left side. You stay up on your hands. You come down to your elbows. Rest your torso on a bolster. Rest your forehead on a block. Okay? And more or less, those are the options in this shape. Now again, we're still targeting here, but it should feel a little bit different than the last pose. Maybe a little deeper, because this generally is a little deeper rotation, and the rotators that we are targeting are deep down inside of the underneath the glutes. So right deep down in there in the hip, that's kind of where we want to access, okay? So that's where we want to feel it. All right, let's switch sides. So you can use tabletop or down dog as a transition. Either one should work equally well. Now again, want to feel on the left side, want to feel that this is within the range of what is safe for our bodies. About halfway. All right. So let's make our way back onto our back. I'm not going to rest back because I'm going to set up props for the next pose, but please rebound as usual. And then we'll go into the next pose together, all right? Okay, go ahead, bring your legs in, give them a nice squeeze, shake it out, a little bit of movement. And then hinge on up to seated. Okay, so this next posture is potentially our most therapeutic posture today and also potentially our most dangerous posture. So we want to take time, care with it, half saddle, have my foot alongside my hip. Okay, I can pad the ankle. If my ankle is not very flexible, I can pad my foot. If my foot is not very flexible, like this, or not flexible, but if the bones of my feet hurt, my toes can point back or out to the side. Okay, again, if I don't need padding, then I don't use it. Okay, not trying to hamper myself here. Now, today, I want to move the foot as far away from my hip as I can without hurting my knee or my hip. So this would be the maximum, and that's too much for me. So my butt is off the ground, because if I were to push it down, I'd hurt my knee. So right about here is my limit. Okay, you find your limit. Your limit might be here. That's fine. Okay, we're just honoring our own personal limitations. So this is rotating this bone. This is what we're doing today. And you may not feel anything. So if you've taken class with me for a while, you've heard me say there's an exception to every rule. Well, usually I want you to feel something in a pose. This is the exception. You may not feel anything. And that's just the way that it is. Because if we were to push it so that you felt something, you might actually be injuring your knee. All right, I feel a little bit in my hip. Now, if you don't feel any stretch here, and you feel okay, you can begin lowering back if you want. It's not required. Now you'll notice I've set up what I like to call the yoga lazy boy. Okay, so this is, again, only if necessary. If I can't lower back all the way and I'm up on my arms, then this can be a more relaxing and comfortable way to do the posture. Right, so adding some support. If I can go further, then I get rid of this block and I do it like this. Okay, again, only if necessary. If I don't need this, then I get rid of the bolster as well. And then I come all the way back onto my back. Right, and now it's definitely, for me, it's much more intense. I can feel that hip getting worked. Now again, if I overdo it, then I can injure myself, or I can make any injuries I already have worse. If I don't do this, then I might be okay for a while, but then one day I'll likely find that my hips and my joints start to get really gnarly and inflexible, and they start to hurt. And that might happen anyway, even if you do yin your whole life. At a certain age, it depends on your genes, depends on your diet, depends on your stress level, your lifestyle. At a certain point, your body might start to wear out. But as a general rule of thumb, if you do this, it's going to wear out less quickly. Right? So the comparison I sometimes make is with brushing your teeth. What do you get for brushing your teeth? Nothing. You get to keep your teeth. You get healthy teeth. What do you get by working your hips like this? Nothing. You get to keep healthy hips. Now, we could say, well, how do I know? If I had never brushed my teeth, maybe I wouldn't have gotten any cavities anyway. Well, you can try it. Let me know what happens. And it's the same with doing yoga. Yoga can be thought of as a preventative. So if we do it, there's no guarantees in life, but we are decreasing the likelihood that we're going to end up with an injury that won't heal or with a problem. We're increasing the likelihood that our hips and our joints are going to stay healthy for most of our life. Right? So same as like with brushing our teeth, where it doesn't guarantee we won't get any cavities, but chances are we will get less cavities than we would have if we did not brush, right? All right, we're switching sides. So this is a great way to think of yoga and yoga practice, preventative. I think that yoga in general and many Eastern health modalities are really very powerful as practiced as a preventative. So not a curative. And I'm not saying that there aren't practices that can be curative, but a lot of these things are very, very powerful, maybe much more powerful as a preventative, which means that we do them while we're healthy as a way of preventing disease, preventing injury, preventing problems. Now, here's the catch. I think we all know that modern drugs have a side effect, right? And oftentimes they have many side effects. And those side effects are usually negative. Well, interestingly, about many of these ancient healing modalities, and I'll include yoga in that, yoga, Tai Chi, these different types of ancient holistic healing modalities, is they often have side effects that are beneficial. So they actually have side effects that can help us in other areas that are unrelated with what we're working on. So many people who practice yoga, for whatever reason that they come, they often discover one day that it is affecting other parts of their life. So today, many people come to yoga for physical health, to heal from an injury or to get fit, whatever that means, to lose weight, to become more flexible. But many people who practice yoga for, any length of time, more than just one class, if they come for a few months, sometimes even a few weeks, they might find that it's beginning to affect them mentally and emotionally as well. And so this is the good news, that I don't think brushing your teeth affects you mentally or emotionally, does it? You just so your teeth will stay healthy. It's kind of boring, right? We could be nice to save that 5 minutes if we didn't have to do it. But we do it so that we can keep our teeth healthy. But yoga, we might find at a certain point that we would do it anyway, even if it wasn't a preventative, because of how it makes us feel overall. All right, let's unwind from that one. Come back onto our back and relax. Just feel that rebound. Good, let's bring the legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out, move around a little bit. And then why don't you lay down, make yourself very comfortable. I'm going to guide you through a very, very brief body scan. And then I'm going to leave you so you can do Shavasana. So you might want to set a timer for about 6 minutes or so. If you can do longer, good. I recommend it. So if you don't have anything you need to do after this class, then just relax on your back for a little bit. You might doze off, but if you stay on your back, you'll come back. You'll wake up again, and then you can get up and do whatever you need to do, and you'll feel very refreshed. All right, so on your back, nice and comfortable, very, very quick. Just a brief body scan. Close your eyes. Let's bring awareness down to our toes. The ankles. The knees. Pelvis. Chest. The shoulders. Throat. The chin. Face. Your head. The back of your head. The shoulder blades. Your back. The buttocks. The calves. The heels. And the soles of both feet. Now the entire body. Feel the whole body relax. All right, everyone, namaste. I'll hope to see you next week at 4:45 for Vinyasa. And if not, 6 o'clock for Yin. Have a lovely week.